Interested? There's a lot less people here than yesterday. I guess the vodka in Paris is sold out or something. How are you guys feeling? For you guys that actually made it here, right? Stay hydrated. I love that. Now, first time at Proof of Talk? Anyone? First time, second time? First time. Where you guys all flew in from? London? Yeah, you took a 2-hour train or you biked here, right? Where are you from? Dubai? Oh, you exit already. There you go. How about you, sir? You're local. I gotcha. I need the dark spots tonight from you, man. I need a list. What to do in Paris after 12. I love that. Now, the thing about these conferences, I started in early 16, been to 60 countries, and looking back, amazed by the people I've met. And it's the art of, can you form a deep relationship with someone in 5 minutes, right? And some people I've met, like in 16, where there wasn't no such thing as Uniswap or Binance, I'm still friends with today, right? So it is possible you'll meet your new friends here. So let me teach you a simple little trick. Hold up your hand. I did it yesterday with the crowd. Hold up your hand. Now, your fingers tell a story. For those that don't know, your fingers tell a story. Anyone you meet outside here in the networking area, run them by your fingers. All right? So try it on each other. Your thumb signals what you're good at, right? Your thumb is basically your billion-dollar skill, your billion-dollar product, your billion-dollar company. So just say it. Hey, I'm good at this. You want to say that right away. Because it's the answer to the question, hey, what do you do? I do this. I'm the best smart contract developer on Solana. Just say it. I'm the best meme coin guy on Ethereum. Just say it. She's already laughing, right? The second one, you point already, right? But it's synonymous for where are you going? Why are you here? What are your goals, right? Now, my daughter's favorite one, what do you hate, right? What is in your allergy list of allergies, right? Also, just say it, right? Now, this one is where you put your wedding ring, right? What are you loyal to? What do you love? And the last one is the one, it's small, it's the smallest for a reason. It's what none of us here put on LinkedIn. It's that thing you're insecure about. You're not as good at it. You're late to meetings, bad at following up, you're bad at fundraising. Now, the trick about this is that if your pinky matches the person you've met their thumb, that's when you have amazing partnerships, right? I'm an extrovert. My wife loves to say, you can sell ice to Eskimos, and I can sell sand to Arabs. But to organize it, a proper notion, I need to find an introvert. That's how you mix it. That's how you find lifetime partners. So, good luck. You've all graduated from Network University. Go try it out. Now, let's bring on the first panel. The topic is Incentivizing Innovation in Web3 Gaming, a mouthful. And the panel will be led by Vineet Bukdi, based in Dubai. He's the managing partner at Cypher Capital. Vineet, you with us? Pinky, see if he's on time. Next up, we have Yat Siu, co-founder, executive chairman at Animoca Brands. You guys can come up. They don't bite. Third is Miko Matsumura from Gumi Crypto. I'll tell you a little secret. Talking about networking, I sat next to Miko last night for dinner, and we ended up talking about the best books you need to buy. After the panel, ask him about any book, it's time to throw away your Harry Potter. You're old enough. Get book recommendations from Miko. Next up, we have Sebastian Borget from Sandbox. Where's the local crowd? And lastly, we have Sami Chlagou from Cross the Ages. Enjoy.
I'm the last one, huh?
I already called you out, mate.
Hi, guys. Good afternoon. How are the energy levels today? I think people are less because everyone's gotten liquidated by the Bitcoin moves today. It's been too red right now. So let's start with the panel. We'll start the panel with a few introductions. I think everybody knows each of you, but would love to know more about you. With you, Yat. So.
Sure, my name is Yat. I'm chairman and co-founder of Animoca Brands. Supposed to be based in Hong Kong, but mostly on the plane.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Miko. I'm a managing partner with Gumi Cryptos Capital. We're an early stage crypto native venture capital fund.
Hi, I'm Sebastian Borget. I'm the CEO and co-founder at the Sandbox, as well as the president of the Blockchain Game Alliance.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sami. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Cross the Ages, a gaming experience.
So the panel is full of all the gaming veterans around here. By the way, I'm Vineet. I run Cypher Capital, one of the $100 million funds out of Middle East. In fact, I work a lot with Yat, Sebastian, and Sami as well. I've invested in Sami as well. So let's kick off this panel on gaming. So, one of the things that has been coming across, I think you guys have heard that Optimism came up with this 850 million sort of a grant, whether you would call it a grant or a retro PGF thing. So I'll start with you. What are your views on it? Who would like to take? Would you like to start?
I'm happy to start.
Perfect.
So I just want to clarify what it is. So the whole thing is called retro PGF, and it's basically retroactive public goods financing. And what does the word retroactive mean? So a grant, you actually give the money and you wait for something wonderful to happen, right? So far, that's been a disaster because people give money and then they wait and nothing good happens, right? Or even something bad happens, right? So retroactive means you basically hold the money and you wait for something good to happen, and then you give the reward. Now, I just want to make a quick editorial commentary, which is I'm so excited to see this mechanism which Optimism has launched that enter into the gaming world. There's a bunch of open source tools. Gitcoin has RetroPGF tools that any game can pick up and start to deploy. And the best way to look at this is that money is money, but it's also symbolic, right? So, I got introduced to someone who loves books. And I think backstage I was talking about Homer, the ancient Greek epic poet. And in the Iliad, there is a huge fight between the best soldier, Achilles, right, and the evil king, Agamemnon, right? And they're fighting about money, right? But the fight isn't about money. The fight is about honor. It's about honor, right? So to me, the thing that's important is that you can incentivize things other than greed, right? If you just reward people for being greedy, then you will attract people who are greedy. And if you attract people who are greedy, then as soon as you stop rewarding them, they leave. So this is not a way to build a community. So that's really what I wanted to express, is I wanted to express that this retroactive mechanism allows a community to honor and create multiple dimensions of values. And they can say, we want people who are devoted. We want people who are builders. We want people who are creative. We want people who are social. We want people who are streamers. We want people, whatever you want. We want people who are modders. Like, whatever it is you want, you can honor that.
I would also argue that actually the NFT communities, even though they didn't call it essentially retro, actually innovated in that area. Because when you bought an NFT, especially back in the early days, it wasn't as liquid. You couldn't sell it. It wasn't the financial value in and of itself. But then when they started dropping tokens retroactively based on their ownership and based on that value, for instance, whether it's Bored Apes, for instance, an example that was really sort of strongly pioneered this, with the launch of ApeCoin. But there's many other systems that have emulated that. What did they do? They rewarded at that moment a very simple mechanism, which was how, holding patterns, that you held it at the time, your loyalty was rewarded. But when people still today hold these NFT assets, it's no longer just about the money that it's worth. It's also, to your point, honor and status. And I think that comes down to one other thing, which is that, for most people in the world, money is not the end in itself, right? The end ultimately is usually a social cultural end, which is like, like for instance, if you make a certain amount of money, then maybe you want to live in a certain place that has a certain status, or you want to have a certain watch, or you want to have certain clothes. The reason we choose a different fashion is to express something in our social status or our social order within that particular network. In gaming, they do that with skins and whatever. So, we are social beings. Humans are social. And in that, we want to basically make sure that we're sort of ranked within that social order. Money is one way to get there. But once you reach a certain amount of money, money alone is not enough, right? Which is why you start looking at these other areas. But you're right about the incentive. So just one stat. I would say I would call these airdrops, right? There's mechanisms of airdrops where you say you get the money if you know what you're doing, and the other airdrop mechanism is I had no idea it's happening, but because I ended up using it, I got a reward for that activity, and you can reward that incentive. In other words, the right behavior you want to promote. In the early days, it didn't do well because it was subject to a lot of Sybil attacks. Proof of humanity didn't exist. It was basically something where you had an army of bots that were farming because there was money involved. But now we're getting better at this. We can prove that you're human. It's not just KYC. If you play a game and you get to a certain level that has certain complexities, then actually you get this reward, which is why I think gaming is so interesting as well. Because gaming is a way which machines can't easily emulate that gameplay or that style. And so when you drop this value to your community, you want to make sure you drop it to the right people, right? Over the last 3 years, pre-2024, so obviously it's more if you include this year, over $21.7 billion worth of airdrops was dropped to community members. I mean, that's a really large amount of money, but when you consider how much we spend on advertising, which is what we spend money on to actually try to get the attention of those same users, it's actually much larger. Hundreds of billions of dollars just is spent in that same period of time to just advertise in the gaming industry, right? Then in that sense, actually, there's much more. The advertising industry is $1 trillion. Imagine instead of paying a platform, they actually end up paying an end user directly to become your customer. Much better. Today, Apple, Google, Facebook, that's where we all advertise. They make trillions of dollars from us, and they don't actually put that money back into the ecosystems that benefit. How much money does Apple put in the gaming ecosystem? Zero, right? How much money does Apple give to players who play games on Apple even? Zero, right? And so in Web3, it goes back into the ecosystem.
So just playing a bit of a devil's advocate with these guys. So when you look at Waze, Waze is building a solution that solves a problem of getting to a destination faster. You don't go there to get a reward. So why can't actually Web3 focus on building communities and use cases and rather not talk about rewards?
Well,
what would happen in such a case?
If you think about Waze, the model is built is like every person that drives this vehicle provides the data, so the network and the application become smarter and helps everyone to drive faster. So the intrinsic reward for everybody to contribute to the network is actually let's save time and let's find ways that are not busy by cars. But you don't get any other form of reward in the form of your data can be monetized other ways. We can sell it to insurance company and so on, for example.
I mean, take a look at, for instance, one of the innovations that came out of Google ultimately was Niantic, right? The technology for Niantic, which gave us Pokemon Go. That location data, actually what the team built was a way to get people incentivized through gaming, which was a money-losing operation for Google. But what they actually got was valuable map data, right? And I think the point on Web3 is that now I have an idea of what the value could be. So I can choose. I have a choice to say, do I give you the data? Do I give it to Waze? Do I give it to Google? Who pays me the most for the value that I provide, right? But we've come to a point where people don't understand. So they're willingly giving the data to everyone. Everyone who's sharing photos on Instagram, every time you do so, you make Instagram money. You just don't know how much it is. But if you finally understood that your time on Instagram was worth thousands of dollars, would you actually give it freely? Or would you actually work with someone who says, you know what, I'll give you that value? And I think that's the point. You're talking about Waze. The issue about Waze is not the fact that they don't offer a valuable service. The issue is that people don't know what they're giving away. Once you know what that is, like in Web 1, the early days of the internet, actually what happened was it disintermediated the middleman. So the farmer in China could actually sell his rice for the real price because he was literally being sold for 100x of what it was. because he didn't have the internet. He didn't know what the price was. So the biggest companies that emerged were like the eBays and the Amazons and the Taobaos and Alibabas. They disintermediated that trade. Now we have a trade in network effects and data, right? That's another kind of trade. It's just one that we don't understand yet. But once we do, which everyone in Web3 does, we don't go back because we know our time is valuable.
Yeah. So, Sebastian, because you answered this question, I just have. So, one of the reasons for getting
I didn't answer yet the question about retroactive feedback. I wanted to share a little bit some perspective. Like, we didn't come up with like such a fancy name, but we've definitely been experimenting a lot around the concept of like who to reward and for which kind of action and engagement. I guess like you can reward just based on the fact of the ownership of a single NFT and like how long you've been holding it. Like basically, are you an OG in a community and have you contributed to bringing new users? Like typically for Sand owner, we did, or landholder and avatar holder, we've been doing airdrop and claims. It's very different actually. Airdrops, you don't really know if you're going, whatever you're going to distribute is actually given to users who are still engaged. With claim, the action makes people come back to your website, so there is an additional action to re-engage, and you can actually track it much better. So we tend to favor claims. We've been launching, so Sandbox is a platform, our main mission is to empower people to become creators. So to do that, you need a land to publish an experience, but like people own land and we're not building. So we launched 10 programs that lasted 10 weeks called the Builder Challenge, and we redistributed 1.5 million sand in reward to the top creator who not only publish, but bring the most players to their games published. And that's been a tremendous retroactive way to reward the creators. The #1 winner like brought like hundreds of thousands of users. He won 400,000 sand. It was a positive incentive that rewarded every action that we could wish of as the platform. And then we also sometimes just like reward assets that have less value, but like create some prestige of ownership. Like, oh, you've been in Sandbox for 2 years. You already have this dragon armor set. And the community, at the beginning, when it's too small, it doesn't matter. But when it reaches a certain size, they definitely identify who are the early players, who are the ones who are still active, who are the ones who are contributing actively. And the best part in a virtual world and a metaverse is like you can wear on it. You can wear on you, you can show that status on your avatar. So they can see on your status above the avatar head, I don't know, some signal that you own land, that you win certain challenge, that you're wearing that Gucci cap and you were part of the drop back then. That's also like very important, both in blockchain gaming and in reality, actually. That's what drives us in the physical world as well, to showcase which community we're part of and what we accomplished beyond money.
I think Sami has some views as well.
Yeah, just to add one thing, very interesting. If you've seen Fortnite, with the experience of content creator, where they created an experience where like they push the people to stay in, they created something new to keep the player. The question is today, we have like a more and more game, and like the time is limited. So how do you keep people? How do you keep the people? Inside the experience, and the experience has to be multiple, inside the game and outside the game. The system that we have today, and its iteration, when we talk about Zilli, DQuest, and all the program like Moon Protocol, the way of how you're gonna incentive the people to first give them an opportunity to win something new, NFT, or currency inside the game, or something that is valuable for the project. Why? First of all, it gives more visibility for the game. For example, like when you have like more retweets, more comments, organic and not bots, it helps you too. It used to be a big problem because before, without the KYC, we have a big problem to have many bots, but now we're putting 2 steps of KYC, the regular one and like with the face one. So if someone wants to bot, he got to spend like $50, to create the real KYC with a passport or everything. So it's like a barrier, to block people. And the thing very interesting is now what we're seeing is with that, you can have more and more organic and get more and more people and incentivize them, to going deeper.
It's the concept of earned media. Actually, like you can get a lot more publicity generated by the players themselves as they post about the game, even if they are not in the game and actually playing.
So an interesting point that you mentioned, you mentioned Fortnite, for example.
Yep.
Now, my quick question to all of you is, do you actually think that decentralized can actually build up great gaming products? Because, all of these things are being done so that, we don't go to a central game development agency. So what are your views? Do you think these actually incentives can build a great decentralized gaming play in terms of getting the money, in terms of building up products?
Well, let's first take a look at the #1, #2 game in the world, which is Roblox and Minecraft, right? And let's talk about why they play those games. It's user-generated. It's in a sense, it's not community-owned in the way that Sandbox is yet, but people who play those games believe they have a stake in it, right? So the ownership principle, the idea, makes it so powerful. And most people in gaming might say, oh, isn't it PUBG or like Apex Legends? And these are really good games. But the reality is that they're much smaller in engagement and user base. And the other thing about games as well to understand is that games are as social as anything, right? I think if you look at Bartle's model, 80% of all people play games for social reasons. If you ask your friends, or if you ask your children, for those of you who have children, why they would be playing Roblox, chances are they'll say, because my friends are playing it, right? It's not the better graphics, it's not that, it's because their community is there. And which brings me maybe to this other point, right, just quickly, when it talks about status, as you're talking about, Miko, as well, and sort of, or honor, or whatever it is you're looking for. What happens in these Web3, in any game, and then especially more so in Web3 games, which are amplified with NFTs, is that actually you're building towards status. Why do I care about that skin in the game? It's not because I think it's valuable, because I can't sell it. I think it's valuable because it denotes a reputation I have in that. And that's actually what we do in the physical world. We do things for our reputation that's important. And in Web3 gaming, why we think it's going to grow even bigger, is that actually that reputation can now travel across. If I'm really good at Fortnite, it doesn't mean anything to someone who plays PUBG. It doesn't mean anything to someone who plays Roblox. They're completely isolated ecosystems. I can pretend to be someone, but it's just not something I can have a proof. Also, we think that's what's going to happen is that people will be able to literally vampire attack these communities, which is what Web2 games don't want, but it's typical in Web3. For instance, if you are a player in Sandbox, or if you own a Bored Ape, I can actually target you by giving you benefits because I want that customer.
That's actually what we do.
Yeah, exactly.
If you come play with our Bored Ape, you can claim and receive Sun in Sandbox based on the
and you get a customer that has a value of at least $50,000 that is known to be a spender in the space and has value. In gaming, we only have about a 1.8 average % conversion rate. And in the Web2 gaming world, we spend so much money trying to find that 1 to 3% paying customer. That's what we spend all that money on, right? But if I could now identify who those gamers are, instead of paying money to a platform to try to sort of blank shoot into it, I can just say, come to this game, and I might give you $1,000 to try this game, whether you like it or not. That's much better money spent and much more targeted as an audience.
So I want to flip a paradigm on its head, right? Which is that there's a Web2 paradigm, and people say, data is the new oil, right? This is stupid. It's completely wrong. And the reason it's stupid is that in Web2, your data is fungible with my data. Like if you're Facebook, right, if I get Sebastian's data, right, then I can sell him ads, right, and I get like this ARPU, I get an average revenue, right? And then if you get my data, then you can sell me ARPU, right? We're average. We're all average. Everyone's exactly the same. It's nonsense. It's nonsense.
But isn't oil fungible?
No, because each individual matters. And so I'll give you an example, right, which is when you look at gaming, one of the things that's amazing is that people talk about things like UGC, right? So obviously in Sandbox, there's huge UGC, right? Obviously Roblox, Minecraft, right? So, but in a sense, like even something as simple as somebody typing in all chat is UGC, right? And there are gamers that are just toxic. They're just horrible players, and they make everyone feel terrible, right? How much is that player worth? To me, that player is worth less than someone who makes all the other players feel great and amazing and wonderful, right? Because they're making the game more fun just by existing, right? And so to me, like, humans aren't fungible, they're not replaceable, and in a sense, like, people should stop with the paradigm of like average cost of user acquisition and marketing budget, a fixed marketing budget that you're prepaying to acquire anyone. Like, this is the wrong mindset.
I agree with that, although I would say that data is fungible to the platforms because they actually extract value, even the negative data, and with that they can gain insights that we as an end user that produce that data don't have the benefit for. So there is a value around that. But I also agree with you, this is about reputation, which is what blockchain can do, right? Because when you have a DID and where you actually end up having that identity layer that belongs to you, then you build an on-chain reputation. Other companies will come to you because of the reputation. Today we see this because I own an NFT. That's kind of like saying I own a Rolex. So if you actually know how I can reach a Rolex customer, someone might come to you directly. I mean, what would an advertiser spend if you could reach that customer? And with NFTs, that's become the proxy for that. But actually, with on-chain reputation, if I played this game well, if I've been playing it for 3 years, if I've never sold an asset, if I've never sell my tokens, whatever reputation you build, you become someone that someone will reward. And we are seeing the inklings of this already with those claims, airdrops, retro, all of these elements are trying to reward the right user. And with that, you build the right community, and from that base, you will have actually a construct. And again, Kevin Kelly said it about building and sort of servicing your 1,000 true fans. That's actually what you want to do. And if you have your 1,000 true fans, it doesn't matter if you give them money, they'll put it right back into you. It could be 10,000 fans, it could be 100,000 fans. But look, imagine if you're a musician. No musician makes money making music anymore because they have no idea who listens to their music. They have no idea how to interact, so they have to go to shows and gigs. But if you could know which person listened to your music 1,000 times, that person is very likely to spend more money on an NFT of yours, or more money on an asset, or buy a T-shirt. If you can reach them, that's your business.
Before I go to the next question, I have a controversial one now. So I remember the Engine Starter founder Engine Starter was this platform where you could launch games. He actually in the bear market told me that the biggest problem that I face today is that people who are coming to fund these games are all speculators and not gamers. So now coming to the question, when you see at your platforms, your companies, how much percentage of people that come to your games that you have invested, or your games or Sandbox, are actually speculators, and how many are actual gamers? I will start with Sami, because Sami has a big gaming community there.
It's an interesting question. For us, we have like a database of 500K people download the game with like more than 200,000 and like 20,000 daily users. What we've seen is very interesting because we get 70% for our customers are coming from the Web 2. It's a Web 2 game, scalable to the Web 3. And we've seen something interesting because we have like a 25,000 wallet active owner of NFT. Half of them, they never get any kind of NFT before. So we made something interesting where we get more and more people, and we created an experience where they never feel that it's a Web3 game. For example, you don't have to burn, you don't have to get a wallet. We give you automatically like a wallet. And the thing interesting is how you're going to be able to scale that, how you're going to be able to go higher. The thing that we see now, it's always hype, new project, new narrative. We were talking together about like the tap to earn and like the score completely incredible. How a new concept that spent a few months to exist, like Node, Pixelverse, are able to get today 3 million daily users, something that we're not able to do, to be honest. Like I spent like 4 years to build cross ages and I'm completely not able to do that. But like it's like always the same narrative. For now, like people on the Web3 are people speculating, trying to get, and they're reaching, different country where people are just tapping to get something with value. So the idea is to maybe try to find the best way to being able to have more people and to convince them. But like it's iteration by iteration, it's completely new. So it's not, we are like in the Web3 and like it's not something, how can I say that? It's a new mechanic that we just need to understand more and more how we're going to be able to get it. And I think we're going quickly because when we've seen like the evolution of the market, we can see that every year something new is coming and it's coming more stable. And yeah, this is my point on that.
So Sebastian, what's your views on this? How many speculators and how many real users?
So I do agree with Sami. Like we're still so early in Web3 gaming. Like there's no established successful business model yet. There is a lot of fast iteration, sometimes failure, birth and fall and rebirth of play to earn or tap to earn and whatever mechanics. The way that Sandbox started is quite original. I haven't seen that a lot in the traditional blockchain gaming. So basically, we already catered right from the beginning at a very creator audience. And what we launched first was a product. Yes, we launched a product before we launched a token, for real. And we introduced a token only 2 years after. So we launched the 3D editor tool called VoxEdit. We launched our game maker tool so people can start making game and play around. And what it did is it attracted a very creative audience. People who are just passionate about creation, reputation, showing their profile and what they do. And progressively, we educated them about the fact that what you create, all that time you spend on, can be valuable if you turn that creation in NFT that you can monetize and sell and use as you want. And that's what happened. Then we introduced the land token around December 2019, explaining them that you can own a piece of digital real estate in a map where you'll be publishing your content. And then, after a while, and selling out those lands in a matter of minutes or seconds back then, it was quite crazy. We introduced the Sand token, and we had already a community of close to 1 or 2 million users who were eager to participate in the economy of the platform, and we're already using the product for the core value, which is like creating and playing. And that really shifted the leverage that we have over the exchanges, because all projects came to list my token, but I don't have I only have a community, I don't have a game, versus like, hey, we are very engaged user, they are ready to create an exchange account, and they are already active. So that allowed us to be listed on Binance, Launchpad by then, and to, I believe, have like the right proportion of like real creators, real player versus speculator.
So maybe let me answer the question slightly differently, which is that when you are a true Web3 user, because there's a whole bunch of people in the Web3 space that I wouldn't argue are yet fully Web3 converted, you actually become an investor of sorts. You have an investing mindset, right? Meaning you're not just there to extract, you're thinking about putting back into the ecosystem. When you think about all of your friends and contacts, once you actually are in Web3, maybe you received some value, whether it's an airdrop or whether you did a good investment, what happens? You actually tend to reinvest back into the ecosystem. Right? You don't necessarily extract it out, you actually put it in another token farm, or you might buy another NFT or that kind of stuff, right? So there's a mindset perspective that's different there as well. But to understand whether it's speculation or not, is what is a token itself, right? I think that's what's so interesting. A token is actually much more than a currency, and also represents much more than, say, classic equity. Actually, it represents the network effect of whatever it is that you're constructing, right? So you really didn't have a way of doing that. So for instance, when you give the tokens, in the case of Sandbox, to the right community members who are building, then they're not the ones who are there for purely speculative reasons. They want to build into the future because they want to partake in the network. For instance, if a token was representative of being able to share photos on Instagram, you wouldn't sell the token because you want to partake in the network of Instagram if it was a token, for instance, right? But you wouldn't just sell it, right? Because the utility would give you access to the network. So the fact that the network affects the value is important. How you construct those users matters. But I think right now, because of the fungibility and because of the volume of trade, you will naturally attract speculators into the space. Right? So the construction of that early community is what's important. So it really, to answer your question, I think it really depends on the game. Right? So when Engine Starter, maybe, again, we're partially we have exposure to Engine Starter through a fund and, great team. But when you are launching it as a launchpad, who are not playing the game, what are you really doing? You're actually targeting people specifically for speculative purposes. So I'm not surprised because that's the audience he's attracting versus I'm playing the game, I'm getting retro rewards, I'm building audiences that are loyal. That's different.
So my how do I differentiate Web2 and Web3 gaming? Web2 gaming is where my son actually asked me to pay $1,000 so that he can buy those credits on the games and actually plays. While in Web3 gaming, everyone's going to get the money out. So
my definition is a Web2 gamer is more like a labor economy, and a Web3 gamer is more like a capitalist.
I think Miko has some views there.
I would say that the difference that I would characterize is that in Web2 gaming, the game owns the players, right? And Web3 gaming, the players own the game. Right? And I think that really has to do with things like governance and participation. But I do want to kind of bold underline what Yat was saying, right? Which is that when you talk about speculators, speculators are driven by really a single value, which is greed. And if you incentivize greed, that's what you'll have, right? But to me, it's exactly what Sebastian was saying too, which is if you incentivize builders, then you'll have that, right? So to me, I think the early part of our industry has been doing it wrong, right? At the early part of our industry, they really want to focus on the player who is playing to earn, which is their sole purpose. And that's greed, right? Because they just want to get money, right? So, the purpose may not be to get money. The purpose may be other purposes, right? Now, but it doesn't mean the money doesn't exist, right? You reward. And that I feel is, but it's more about what does that do to promote values and values other than just greed?
I mean, when you think of money itself, right? On one hand, you could say the accumulation of money is a form of greed, and obviously there's a value to that. But actually, money's other purpose is social, right? The fact that you use money to transact and interact with strangers in the world that you don't know, that medium, that utility of money is actually equally valuable, and most people use money in that way, not necessarily in this manner of just purely for greed, right? But I think it's also to do with the origins of our industry. Our industry started off when people talk about Bitcoin as a store of value, and really it was a sentiment against financial institutions. It started more from a Wall Street perspective, right? NFTs, which is really, I think, the center of where the focus on Web3 became culture. Actually, before NFTs, we didn't even talk about Web3. It was just generally crypto, right? It's an industry that's only 5, 6 years old, right? I mean, as a result. And so we're still very early in the development of that. And just to close one point, most people are now joining the Web3 space because of NFTs and gaming and culture, which was not true 5 years ago, right? So the ecosystem is shifting.
Yeah. So Sebastian, I have a dodgy one for you on this. But
Okay.
you know, there's this whole talk about separating greed and getting real work done. Now, the whole objective is that it has to be distributed, communities have to be formed, which basically means DAOs. So one is, how do you view DAOs? Because I think Sandbox launched the Sandbox DAO. But then second question around here, this is the dodgy one. Earlier, they used to say this mass management is mismanagement. But DAOs actually proved the other way around. So first, would love to know about the Sandbox DAO and how does the DAO functioning actually build a great community?
I will get to the DAO in a minute. I was just reflecting on what Yat and Miko were saying. I think like the circular economy, like the money also has to circulate. So we need a little bit more than just a holder and the people who participate in the game itself. So investors have a role, just like in capitalism. They do have a role. They fund initially. They support the building of the product. It's just like you have to balance right, like how much will be entering the circulating supply versus the upcoming demand coming from the activity of your product. You can see like at the economy of a nation in a way. I will stop there because then we'll dive too far. And also, I strongly believe in like decentralization for the sandbox, and that was part of our vision from the beginning. In 2020, we planned to like let the people who contribute to building and contributing to the economy to own that world, to own how it will evolve over time, to participate in like the decision of the roadmap, the project we will be supporting, the feature we will do, like the player status, etc. And that's why we launched a DAO finally 2 weeks ago. And we introduced the possibility not just for sandholder, that's very important, but also for landholder to vote in the decision. And that's something pretty new that we came up after like looking at other DAOs for over 2 years and how they worked and where was the decision power concentrated and who was voted and in which interest, for their personal interest or for the interest of the greater good of the community and the product itself. So in case of Sandbox, we have a 25 million sand budget assigned per year, where people can use their sand and their land. One land represents 4,500 votes in terms of voting power, versus one sand is 1 vote. To tell you the difference, we have about 27,000 unique landowners, and the sandholders about 250,000. So that gives us like a fair balance. They own 1-2 land versus 10,000 sand on average. And we want to really make them own like the decision of the platform in the future. Give those players, give those creators the autonomy, the freedom, and the ability to make Sandbox live forever, even without the core team at the core, even just like make it fully persistent and timeless. So that's the dream. I hope that it will inspire like platforms like Fortnite and Roblox over time. And in the meantime, it's progressive. We set a cap, we set a certain strategy as a core team. I hope we manage well, because you were mentioning mismanagement. So the idea, like sharing the vision of like the culture, bringing on board like a council as well. So on that council, we have 5 key members. Yat Siu, who's here, like one of the most reputable person in the space. You have Shannon Snow for World of Women. You have Frédéric Montagnon, which is like a serial entrepreneur in Web3, and Jean-Michel Payon, which is an ex-Ledger executive and founder of Grail Capital. And we also have an advisory board of 7 members, people who have been very involved in the platform itself as builders, as creators, to help continue shaping the direction and incentivizing those SIPs, Sandbox Improvement Proposals, so hopefully they keep setting the right direction for the growth of the Sand and the Sandbox ecosystem.
So Sami, when it comes to, they're talking about decentralizing everything, building the DAO, but I would still say in your case, it's more about you, a founder, and having a vision. I remember 3 years back when we met in Dubai, you had this book where you had a vision of getting great artists who would build up stuff. I think you signed up 6 people. So you were a centralized person who was building the vision. So it would be something different than a decentralized. People were not deciding, you were deciding. So do you agree with this as well?
It's not exactly different because like we also created a DAO. The second experience of Cross the Ages, it's not about gaming anymore. From the first day, we didn't create a game. We created an IP with multiple experience. You have books, animation movie. You have several games. The first is a trading card game. The second one, it's an action RPG that we're gonna showcase in September in Tokyo. And you have like all the parts like around that. The thing interesting that we build, it's now, you know, it's the real world asset that we put on the roadmap in 2020. For us, everything has to be linked to the real. For the card, for example, you have digital assets, can be NFT and physical card. For the land, we have the digital land, you have the NFT, and you have the physical land. We are owner of 100,000 meters square in the US, where you are owner of a land inside Cross the Ages. You have the land in the US. You say, okay, Sami, it's funny, but what I'm going to do like with the corn land in the US, like 100 meters square, 500 meters square, 5,000 meters square. What we made is we are close to substation, and we selling, you know, the energy of the substation. So we created the capex, and we are able to transform the energy with transformator, getting the 20,000 energy to 2020, and we sell it to Bitmain, Foundry, to Super AI. This revenue, real revenue, we give it, you know, to the player. It's 5 to 15% when you are owner of the land, that the yield yearly that we buying pressure of the token. And if you are owner of the asset, your asset become real, and it's go to 10 to 30% per year. It's completely a new way to do. It's a new iteration, but it's something very deep that we're working on that due to the DAO, because we have a DAO behind that, that's giving back, you know, the money for the player. And I think this is the way of how, you know, people will really get, you know, the ownership, really get the physical ownership. And I think this makes sense.
I think Miko has something to share here.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment really quickly on what you were talking about with respect to multi-game and transmedia IP,
yeah.
right? Because really we're reaching a gamer-centric transmedia generation, multi-generational, 4-quadrant transmedia, Mario movie, this kind of world, right? So we're really achieving this. And the thing that I want to underscore is that NFT represents the permanent digital asset, and it really is the potential future of a very, very durable asset. And to me, the question is, how do game franchises stay alive? And they stay alive through being constantly refreshed. And so I'll give you an example. The evolution of a game is if you look at something like the birth of League of Legends, right? It originally comes from the modding community, right? Through Dota, Defense of the Ancients, right? So to me, the idea is, what about the impact of AI, right? I've become a software programmer because I'm now telling ChatGPT how to write Python, right? So like, I'm not really a hardcore programmer, but like, can you imagine AI-based software development tools in the hands of gamers, basically to create mods, right? So this is a constantly refreshing gameplay environment, right? And those are all contributors that are adding value to this ecosystem, right? So to me, the idea of the generation of a multi-generational, 4-quadrant, gamer-centric transmedia IP based on something like blockchain is really unprecedentedly available. And we just need to stop thinking so quick. We need to stop thinking about fast money, right? We need to start thinking about building these brick by brick, so we can really see these kind of like gradual empires forming within this. You know, like for example, if you look at what Hilmar is doing with CCP games, right? His job is to make games that are more meaningful than real life. That's how he said it, right? And so to me, having built EVE Online, we're definitely going to see durable multi-generational transmedia franchises in the metaverse. You know, and
it's already happening actually.
Yeah, Sandbox,
Sandbox, the best way is user-generated content. I feel like you said it, people can make their characters, their level, their storytelling, their adventures, their games, and ultimately their modes. That's what turns a game into a platform and makes it live forever. That's how you have like Red Dead Redemption, GTA 5 will exist forever. Hopefully Sandbox will exist forever. You never lack of content, and content that expand the favorite things we like in the world, those brands and IPs. The next generation is like the first brand and IP born directly on those platforms and remodeled constantly by the creators themselves.
I mean, the modability, really, if you think about it, of Roblox and Minecraft is the reason why those games are the #1, #2 game in the world. And actually, even Fortnite sees that value, which is why they created a creator model and tried to do that, but within their particular closed ecosystem. But I just wanted to touch quickly on your question on DAOs. And I think, to me, actually, DAOs are the future model of all organizations. I think games can lead that way. But when you think about how many of those communities self-organize, modding is a perfect example. Completely self-organized, right? And some of the biggest games, you know, from the Half-Lives to the sort of Roblox sort of sub-games have all come from a community that was not organized by the institutions themselves and are community owned. And I think there's some great examples with Cross the Ages where you can show how that usability is going out there from like third parties. Because once you have third parties that can compose on top of it, it creates more network effects and more value. And the other thing I would sort of want to remind people as well, people talk about current corporate structures as if they were there forever, right? The limited liability company, which we all use today, is really an accepted standard of really only 3 or 4 decades ago, right? The actual institution that we use as a Delaware corporation or as a limited liability corporation is within our parents' generation. That's how young it is, right? So to say that this is the ultimate best structure is nonsense because it barely existed before. And it's just an iteration, an improvement of previous systems. And to me, DAO is the next step in which we can take that one step further. Because a shareholder corporation is what we're trying to do. We're trying to bring our shareholders in. But how do you manage 1 million shareholders? You can't. A corporation does not have 1 million shareholders, right? But you can have 1 million token holders. You can have 1 billion token holders. You can have 1 million people own NFTs in your game. They become stakeholders that are manageable with real-time votes. Try to do voting in a shareholder corporation of even, we have thousands of shareholders. It takes us a quarter to do every time. Apple, one of the biggest companies in the world, has only 80,000 shareholders. Can you think? Right? Even though, hundreds of millions of people use those products, right?
Absolutely.
So this completely changes the paradigm.
I think we are running out of time, so better to conclude over here. So from what I understand is you guys believe that getting retro rewards is somewhere where the future lies, but it's all about separating greed from actual end deliverables. It's not just about the tokens that you get. And I believe you agree that DAO has a future and DAO is where the next generation companies will come. So quick question before we end. Which Web2 game do you want to see in Web3? One by one, everyone, before we finish.
Or League of Legends. League of Legends would be amazing.
You can't say Sandbox, so next one.
All right, I wish like Fortnite would jump into it. I think that would bring like massive attention again and propel the economy at new scales.
Sure.
I guess my favorite indie game is RimWorld.
Okay.
I would say Roblox, because not only because it's the biggest game in the world, but it's where most children are playing. Sure. And the children, youth pushes the future forward. So we want our youth to be embraced in Web3. So Roblox for me.
Perfect. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. I think we are out of time. I'm not sure if we have time for questions, but you can catch the speakers and definitely have a chat one-to-one. So thank you for your time, guys. Great talking to you. Thank you. Yes.
Let's go, Chen. Let's go.
All right, all right. Thank